Since the release of its first season back in 2015, it didn't take long for Better Call Saul to become the most successful spin-off in the history of AMC. And with a rather impressive cast of characters coupled with incredible writing, this was really no surprise. But what do we know about the future of the franchise? And will it be avoiding the Breaking Bad pitfall in the end? For all of this and more, stay tuned. First of all, let's talk a bit about what is meant by the so-called Breaking Bad pitfall. So, for those of you who don't know or need a stark reminder, Saul Goodman as a character was first developed in the popular show Breaking Bad, where he had every intention of helping Heisenberg with his legal troubles. He made such an impact on fans of the show that an idea was formulated in which he would lead his very own show, which later came to be known as Better Call Saul. But since Bob Odenkirk's character was introduced in Breaking Bad, the showrunners knew that they would be in a state of constant comparison with their sister show, something that experts in the field said would be damning considering the massive amount of love fans had for the original franchise. That being said, Better Call Saul came out swinging and quickly stole the hearts of old and new fans alike with its comedic take on terrible consequences of legal circumstances. As we mentioned earlier though, the comparison remains strong, and now that Better Call Saul is approaching its sixth and final season, many have been wondering whether it will fall short as its predecessor did towards the end. It might surprise fans of Breaking Bad to hear this, but its final season wasn't as critically acclaimed as the rest of it. You see, the show decided to lean into action sequences more than it had in the past, and although this created far more excitement in the long run, the loss of character focus was rather damning. In fact, it was the earlier formula of Breaking Bad that allowed BCS to succeed. Look back at the first seasons of Breaking Bad, and you'll notice something different from its fifth and final season. Walter White wanted nothing more than to help his family through any means necessary, and to have his character develop from a cowardly schoolteacher to a ruthless drug kingpin was a true lesson in greed. But the slow burn that helped its earlier seasons flourish was somewhat missing from the later seasons. As Heisenberg became more inundated with trouble and feelings of anger, things spiraled out of control, resulting in far more action sequences than were present in the beginning. And that's not what fans wanted. You could have looked anywhere from the Fast and the Furious franchise to the adventures of John McClane in Die Hard if you wanted action back then, so there was really no need for the showrunners to lean so heavily into the genre. Breaking Bad was best when the showrunners worked at building up the tension, making it almost palpable until the last few episodes called for an explosion in which Heisenberg and the rest of his team would succeed through any means necessary. We understand that this gravitation toward action was the resultant of Walter becoming far more arrogant and greedy in his character, but we can't help but wonder how much better things would have been if the show had stuck with its original concept, and by the sound of things, Better Call Saul just might. At least that's what the latest character promise seems to suggest. In an interview with the New York Times a couple of weeks ago, Bob Odenkirk addressed fan concerns in the best way possible. After seeing how accelerated the action sequences toward the end of the show's fifth season were, rumors were spreading regarding the inevitable downfall of the spin-off, much like Breaking Bad. But Odenkirk was quick to respond to these rumors by suggesting that the final season of Better Call Saul would be character-focused over and above anything else. While the showrunners were no doubt attempting to introduce more flashy Breaking Bad moments into the storyline, they somehow lost sight of the successful formula of the show. This was, however, more of a lapse of judgment than anything else, with the final installment of the series now promising to be more primed towards the characterization that has made the spin-off so incredible to watch. This also means that we can expect the slow-burn action drama and action sequences that were somewhat popularized by the earlier seasons of Breaking Bad, and we honestly couldn't be more excited to hear that. Nobody wants Better Call Saul to end up with a season of ridiculous moments that attempts to one-up one after another. But this isn't the only information Odenkirk decided to offer up about the sixth and final season of the franchise, though. According to him, it's a true return to what the show should have been from the very start. This doesn't mean that there will be a lack of action sequences in general, though. When asked about the final installment of the franchise, Odenkirk said that he can't wait to gauge audience reactions, because he really believes that Season 6 is something special. It's far less cartoony than what fans saw at the end of Season 5, which is what led them to criticize the spin-off for somewhat failing to the same degree as Breaking Bad. In his own words, "I think it's pretty great. I would want to end with this kind of character development focus. That's what it's about, instead of something that just has guns in it." But after giving his opinion, Odenkirk also assured fans of the franchise that this didn't mean the guns would be completely absent from the show. Where there's crime, there will be weapons, and as such, Better Call Saul will still find itself with the odd action sequence consequence, but seems like this will be supporting rather than leading, and that's what changes it from the last season we witnessed. He also mentioned how his character will be spending a fair amount of time committing small crimes that are both humorous and aimed at the development of his character, something we've been waiting to see for quite some time now. Saul as a character became popular because of his ability to go over and above for criminal clients after all, and that's all the audience really wants from the final season at the end of the day. Are the fans actually right to criticize the final season of Breaking Bad, though? It's a show that is more often than not called a masterpiece after all, so should it really be remembered as an action-packed franchise that lost the plot towards the end? Well, yes and no. You see, everything is open to criticism. Some of the greatest works of art ranging from the Mona Lisa to the Lord of the Rings franchise have been criticized in the past for something or another, but that's not to suggest that it was a bad show. It just had some rather ridiculous moments towards the end that destroyed the core of what made it so popular in the first place. Think back to the time that Walter White mounted a machine gun on the back of his car and had it working flawlessly without problem. There's no doubt that the final season felt more pressured by other shows that were popular at the time for their explosions and high-intensity engagements, and unfortunately for Breaking Bad, this did lead to the introduction of certain characters who were less thought out than others. Jack Welker is a great example of this lapse in judgment. The appearance of the incoherent white supremacist seemingly came out of left field, which was strange considering how fantastic the show had been up until when it came to the character setups. So we shouldn't remember Breaking Bad for its pitfalls towards the end, but this doesn't mean that we can't compare it to Better Call Saul and hope for a better conclusion. So when can we expect Season 6 to show us what it's got? Well, according to reports, the first segment of the season is said to be arriving in just a few months' time, more specifically on the 18th of April 2022. Season 6 will then be taking a short hiatus with the second part of the installment continuing on in July of the same year. That is, unless the spread of COVID-19 has anything to say about it. We know that filming has concluded, as well as the vast majority of post-production, but in the era of the coronavirus pandemic, we've chosen to be far more wary than we were in the past. In other words, the hope is that we'll be seeing Season 6 of Better Call Saul in April, but there's always a possibility of some or other delay plaguing the show once more. Either way, we can't wait to see what the showrunners have in store for us, and by the sound of things, it's going to be one heck of a ride. And there you have it, everything you need to know about the future of Better Call Saul. What do you think about the return to characterization, though? And what are you expecting to see in this final installment? Feel free to let us know in the comments section down below.